Dakota Ditcheva might not look like a fighter, but when these girls step into the cage with her, they tend to lose a part of themselves by the time they come out. Dakota has a way of changing her opponents, and for this video, you'll see exactly why. This is Fighting is Art. Let's go. Dakota Ditcheva versus Cornelia Holm. Round 1. Cornelia Holm had amassed a record of 6 wins and 5 losses, making her a suitable test for a very young and inexperienced fighter like Ditcheva. She was by no means a world beater, but she still had some interesting stylistic challenges for Dakota to overcome. But Ditcheva was the one that every single person had come to see, the true superstar in the making. And you could tell that PFL were excited about his budding prospect's potential. Ditcheva was about to give her opponent a real lesson on the levels that exist in the fight game, and it would drastically alter the course of her career. But it was Holm who had the first moment of true success, driving into a solid takedown that took Dakota off balance, although she did manage to quickly work her way back to a more competitive position. Holm was determined though, because let's face it, she probably knew that this fight would only go one way on the feet, and so wrestling was clearly her best path to victory. But when Dakota found the opportune moment to explode into an offensive flurry, she did it and maximized her output. Holm's strategy was clearly damage limitation, but she could only do so much to prevent Ditcheva from doing her thing. Holding on for dear life was only going to delay the inevitable, but maybe that was part of the goal here. Perhaps Holm felt like she would have a better chance if she tested Dakota's cardio and made it out of the first round. Ditcheva was still early in her MMA career, and as a kickboxer by trade, her defensive wrestling was not quite as good as it would later become, but she was defending decently well without improving her position. Holm was basically left at a stalemate here, safe from harm, but without any real threat of the takedown, and Ditcheva was not really being forced to use too much stamina at all to stay on her feet. Aside from the flurry of clinch attacks from Dakota, this was looking more and more like a stalemate round. Dakota definitely did more damage and therefore won the round, but for Holm, the goal here was clearly to try and sap at her gas tank. At this early stage, not losing by way of brutal KO was the main goal. Round 2. Would round 2 be any more successful for Holm? Or would we see signs of fatigue creep in with Ditcheva as the bout wore on? Well, Ditcheva knew that she was more than capable of fighting off takedown attempts from a fresh opponent, so surely things would get a little easier for her to anticipate and counter in this round. Then, out of nowhere, Dakota came through with the biggest shot of the fight so far, a huge right hand that visibly staggered Holm. Ditcheva has an insane amount of firepower for a flyweight fighter, and now Holm knew it for sure. Even as Holm attempted to grab a hold of her and work her way back into her wrestling game plan, it was clear that her confidence was not where it was. That shot rang her bell, and now Dakota knew she could hurt her. And you could really see her confidence shining through. Now, Dakota knew she could hurt Holm, and with power like hers, if she can hurt an opponent, the opportunity to finish them will never be too far behind. Holm just could not mount any offense at all. It was almost as if she was afraid to try and actually strike with such a seasoned opponent. And to be honest, we can understand why. Her only route to victory here was the takedown, and that wasn't even working. And if we can notice just how one-dimensional her game was, you can be damn sure that Ditcheva was clearly aware of it too. The gulf in technical ability was getting way too large now, and Dakota was hitting her flow state, totally able to see and read everything coming back at her.
Mention that during the breaks, both corners. And there is the stand-up.
We can't even say that Holm had a puncher's chance, because it simply would not be true. This fight was a death sentence, and she was clearly starting to realize that.
Desperate to get this fight to the floor.
One of these fighters was heading to the very top of the sport, and the other wasn't. We can't explain it any simpler than that.
Back on the feet with Dakota Ditcheva. Good level change here from home.
She wouldn't be able to take home the win in this round, but Dakota was clearly breaking Holm's confidence, showing her that having one legitimate path to victory is simply not enough.
Look at this. Now you can see the difference. Look at the bend in her spine now before we had that hip question.
Round 3. Was Holm even capable of turning this fight around? Probably not. But if you know anything about Dakota Ditcheva, playing it safe and waiting for the judges is not part of her DNA. Holm, to her credit, was making it difficult for Ditcheva to find that one perfect knockout shot. She kept moving on her feet and always kept the threat of a big takedown alive.
December 8th, $100,000 and a nice shiny gold belt on the line there.
But Dakota was always several steps ahead of her, and she knew that this round would eventually spell Holm's doom.
Surprised a lot of people, I think.
Dakota's timing with those kicks was just on another level, and it made it damn near impossible for Holm to get her own game going. At this stage, the main question was whether Holm could achieve a moral victory by just surviving this offensive onslaught.
Last time out, was a split decision over Marta Malicia.
Unfortunately for her, we got an answer to that question very suddenly, and once Ditcheva's finishing instincts kick in, there's no escape. It wasn't her fastest finish, far from it, but Ditcheva once again showed us that she was maturing before our very eyes. It was a complete performance against an opponent who did not want to engage. It wasn't Dakota that dragged about into the third round. Holm was the one who was afraid to fight in the pocket.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Derek, he called a halt to the action at 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
A clean win, and a dominant one as well. Unfortunately, getting schooled like this by such an elite opponent proved to be a major turning point in the career of Holm, and at the time of this video's creation, she has not fought again since. Dakota Ditcheva versus Valentina Scatizzi. Round 1. Danielle Scatizzi certainly represented a step up in competition for Dakota relative to Holm, but once again, she was about to prove that the elite levels were in his very near future. Ditcheva had to deal with a Dublin crowd who were fully behind Scatizzi, who lives and trains there. But if you thought this would throw Ditcheva off her game, think again. No, this fight would not be anywhere near as drawn out as her clash with Holm, because this time Dakota had an opponent who made the mistake of not keeping her distance.
Scatizzi in the southpaw stance, coming out aggressive.
Sure, putting pressure on the young fighter might have seemed like the smart idea, but Dakota's ability to counter her opponents was already becoming a huge part of her game. Dakota's timing and speed were already proving to be way too much for Danielle to handle.
Get around these legs. Oh, knees. This clinch knee, if we saw Dakota Ditcheva.
Sure, going down the wrestling route might have seemed like a solid plan too, but like Holm before her, all she was doing was delaying the inevitable.
Put her on her back.
I mean, it's a good game plan from Scatizzi. It's the way she's got to win.
And once Dakota found the right moment to escape, she did so flawlessly, showcasing her ever-improving technique. Scatizzi was in real trouble now, and you could feel the energy in that Dublin arena starting to shift. This was Ditcheva's showcase fight, and she was the one who was going to put on a show. Some attempts at stifling Dakota's offense bought Scatizzi some time, but that's all she could really do. Eventually, the doctor took one look at Scatizzi's eye and saved her from a whole world of further damage by calling off the bout there and then.
Gentleman referee Dan Mulvaney called a halt to the action at 5 minutes of round number 1.
Scatizzi was 2-on coming into this fight, but her early career confidence was utterly destroyed on this night as she went into a disappointing slump from here onwards. Her current record stands at 3 wins and 4 losses. Dakota Ditcheva versus Taila Santos, round 1. Anyone who follows the UFC and watched Taila Santos's close fight with the 125-pound GOAT Valentina Shevchenko will know that this would clearly be the toughest fight of Dakota's career. Or at least, this looked like her trickiest matchup on paper. But Dakota was about to show us just how ready for the elite of the elite she was. Would Santos's experience at the top level allow her to poke holes in her young opponent's defenses? Only time would tell. Ditcheva knew she had the power to truly trouble Santos, but for now, her leg kicks were her focus. Taila knew that she needed to work her grappling and wrestling into things if she was to be successful. But Dakota was improving her takedown defense at an astonishing rate, and she stifled Taila at every attempt. And once you stop those first few takedown attempts, it generally gets a lot easier for you to continue doing so. In other words, Taila was running out of options. Santos knew she had 5 rounds to try and work on Ditcheva's gas tank, but the problem was surviving that long in the first place. Dakota fought with absolutely no fear, flowing masterfully between attacking styles, keeping Santos guessing what her next move would be. This was no scrub either. This was a fighter who had given Valentina Shevchenko one hell of a bout. It does make you wonder how a clash between Ditcheva and the UFC legend Shevchenko would play out. Round 2. We had only finished 1 round and this bout was already starting to slip out of Santos's reach. Dakota is the type of fighter who thrives on momentum, and once she stops fearing the opponent's skills, things tend to get very, very one-sided. Santos obviously wanted to take this one to the ground, but in order to do so, she had to bring some form of credible offense on the feet, which she simply could not do. Ditcheva is a sniper out there, and in this case, she clearly wanted to get the highlight reel finish. Santos was barely proving to be any trouble for Dakota, which is insane to think about considering how highly she was hyped coming into this fight. This was the fight that made some people openly question whether we were watching the single greatest flyweight in the sport, in any promotion. If you asked Santos honestly, she'd probably tell you that she had a much easier fight in there with Shevchenko, the GOAT of the division. But Ditcheva was somehow making both of them look bad. She wasn't just defending against Santos's attempts to ground her, she was offering up punishment every time. Eventually, that killer instinct took over, and Dakota started to really cook. It doesn't matter if you're a top 5 flyweight in the world or not. Getting away from Ditcheva when she senses a finish is damn near impossible. This was a walk in the park and a $1 million performance for Dakota. She just made one of the best fighters in the world at her weight class look like she had no business being in the same cage as her. Now that's impressive. And though Santos hasn't fought since, her reputation has taken an almighty hit. And for the first time, Ditcheva has a legitimate head-to-head comparison with the best of the best in the UFC, and she's making them all look bad. But what do you think of Dakota Ditcheva and her clear potential? Let us know in the comments section below.